Good morning. So I'm glad to see so many of you attending today's service. Welcome to the Sunday service of the Higashi Honganji Los Angeles Beds Inn. So it is the last Sunday service for the year 2025. So I feel honored to speak today to conclude the services of our temple for this year. So today's service is also the celebration of Shakyamuni's becoming the Buddha, so which is traditionally called the Bodhi Day, Jodoe in Japanese. So the word Bodhi means awakening or enlightenment. So it is generally believed that when Shakyamuni or Gautama Siddhartha attained enlightenment, so he came to be called the Buddha, which means the awakened one. So this is a generally accepted idea about why Shakyamuni came to be called the Buddha. So if you look up on the internet, most sites explain that Gautama Siddhartha achieved enlightenment, and then he came to be called the Buddha in honor of his achievement, of spiritual achievement. If you ask an artificial intelligence or AI, so they should most likely give you a similar answer because they mostly collect and analyze the information that's available on the internet. So this is the correct understanding about the meaning of the Bodhi Day. But from the perspective of our Jodo Shinshu tradition, so there is something more important in Shakyamuni's achievement of enlightenment. In fact, what he did after he achieved enlightenment is much more important in the Buddhist tradition. So I explain about it using Shakyamuni's life story. So Shakyamuni's life stories usually goes like this. So he was born into a royal family in the India or Nepal, today's Nepal, and so he was born in the garden named Lumbini, and in the garden he makes 7 steps forward, and he declares that every life is equally precious and noble. So then, after that, he lives a kind of privileged and comfortable life as the future king of his clan. But in his younger days, he is deeply troubled by the thoughts on suffering in life. So about the suffering in life, many people explain that our life is impermanent, and Shakyamuni tried to find a way to overcome this suffering of impermanence. But there is much more important in this idea of suffering Shakyamuni was faced with. At the time in India, it was commonly believed that every living being was going through an endless cycle of reincarnation, or birth and death. The concept of reincarnation was closely interconnected with the idea of karma. Karma is the accumulation of our conduct or act. That is, your next life will be determined by your current conduct. And if you commit good deeds, you will be in a desirable situation. But if you commit bad deeds, you will be in an undesirable situation and you have to pay the price for your conduct. So that's the general idea about the concept of karma and reincarnation. So this concept of endless cycle of rebirth created great suffering, especially those in underprivileged conditions, especially in the lower class of the caste system in ancient India. So at age 29, Shakyamuni determined to find a way to liberate all people from this endless cycle of rebirth. So for the next 6 years, Shakyamuni goes through extreme practices of self-discipline, such as fasting, to achieve a high spiritual goal. But eventually, at the age of 35, he abandons the ascetic practices to find a way to liberation. It means that he abandoned both extreme ways of life. So one is the life in comfort as a prince at the age of 29, and the life of extreme self-mortification at the age of 35. So he finds a middle way here. Then he decides to sit down under a tree and goes into meditation. And he determines not to stand up again until he achieves his spiritual goal. So during the meditation, he carefully observed how all phenomena in this world takes place and disappear. And finally, at the break of dawn, he discovered the truth of dependent origination. So which means everything in our life takes place as the effect of causes and conditions, and everything disappears when any element of the causes and condition disappears. Then he finds that the cause of the suffering in our life is our attachment to our ego self in our mind, so which is also a form of ignorance. Then he finds a way to liberate ourselves from the suffering and live our life to the fullest. So the Buddhist tradition says it is the moment when Shakyamuni has achieved awakening. That is, he became the Buddha. So as I mentioned before, most information on the internet explain that this is Shakyamuni's achievement of Bodhi, and this is why he has been known as the Buddha. But this is only a half of the story. So the rest of the story is much more important for the Mahayana Buddhist tradition. After his awakening, so he awakened to the reality of dependent origination in his meditation. After the awakening, Shakyamuni continues meditation. He continued to contemplate. So he changes the place of meditation every 7 days. So during the phase of contemplation, what was on his mind is that how ordinary people would react to his awakening. Then he concludes that very few people would understand the meaning of his awakening because it is too subtle and too hard to grasp and too deep. The attachment in our mind is so fundamental to our self-consciousness that it is not easy for us to break it off. We even enjoy our suffering sometimes. No matter how hard he tried to teach people, his effort would be wasted. That's what he realized. So during the contemplation, he decides to give up sharing his thoughts and keep it only to himself and enjoy the enlightenment. So according to a Buddhist legend, so one of the Hindu gods, so Brahma, he was watching over from the heaven, and then he was watching Shakyamuni. He was about to give up his sharing his thoughts with people. So Brahma was really afraid that it would be devastating if Shakyamuni gives up liberating people from their suffering. Then the Brahma hurriedly came down from heaven, then appeared in front of Shakyamuni and asked him to share his enlightenment with people. Many times he asked many times. So this episode is called Brahma's plea in the Mahayana tradition. Brahma's plea. After that, Shakyamuni continued his contemplation, still struggling to make a decision because people's attachment is too strong. So, and he deepened his thoughts on how to share his awakening with people. Then Shakyamuni finally determines to share the truth he has found and stands up and heading for his former fellow practitioners. When Shakyamuni shared his awakening to the truth with the 5 fellow practitioners, they also are awakened and then become his disciples. So at this point, he refers himself to as the Tathagata. The word Tathagata has several different meanings, but one of the meanings is that the one who has come from the truth. By achieving awakening, Shakyamuni became the Buddha, the awakened one, and then by sharing his awakening with people, he became the Tathagata, the one who comes from the truth. Today, the words Buddha and Tathagata are used in the same way, but have opposite direction in their meanings. The Buddha is someone who have gone to the truth, and the Tathagata is someone who have come from the truth. So we call Amida as Amida Buddha, and also we call him as the Amida Tathagata. So in the beginning of Shoshinge, there's the word Nyorai, Kimyo Muryo Ju Nyorai. Nyorai is a Tathagata. So it's a standpoint from we receive the teaching. That's why we pray the working of Buddha wisdom compassion as Tathagata, someone who has come from the truth. So when Shakyamuni awakened his fellows by sharing his awakening, the truth became the Dharma. And then those fellow followers who listened to his teaching became the Sangha. At this point, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha materialize in this world. So this episode is called the first turning of the Dharma wheel. So this is the most important event in the Buddhist history. So from this viewpoint, the Bodhi Day should be the celebration of the first turning of the Dharma wheel, when Shakyamuni truly became the Buddha, and then his awakening became the Dharma, and then his fellow practitioners became the Sangha. The contemplation Shakyamuni did after his awakening is the embodiment of the wisdom and the deep contemplation on human conditions. So as in the Shoshinge, so we recite that the Koko Shiyui Shishoju is the contemplate for the length of the 5 kalpas, very long time. The deep contemplation on human conditions. So this so Shakyamuni's deep contemplation after his awakening is also expressed in the Shoshinge. Okay. Then, and his decision to stand up to share his awakening is the embodiment of the compassion. So this whole process is the realization of the Hongan, or the original vow of Amida Buddha. So as you can see, it is also embodied as the statue of Amida, who is standing up and then about to make a step forward, and then slightly leaning toward us to save us. So if you are awakened to a truth, it will be a very precious experience. But by sharing the truth with others, the truth becomes the Dharma, and the listeners become the Sangha. So the three treasures, the Buddha and Dharma and the Sangha, are closely interconnected with each other, and none of them can exist independently. So that is why Rennyo Shonin, the eighth abbot of the Honganji tradition, always encouraged people to exchange their ideas with other people. That's why we have a large space of the temple handle and also the discussion room. So this tradition still, we have still alive in our temple structure. So discussion is very important in our temple activities. So today I talked about the meaning of the Bodhi Day today from my perspective. But thank you very much for listening. And last but not least, on behalf of the Higashi Honganji Los Angeles Basin and also Higashi Honganji North America District, I thank you for the continued support you have given to us throughout the year. Thank you very much again, and have a great holiday season. Thank you.